All right, cool. And we are here again with Breakthrough 2020. Funny, I was telling Ross before we started today that this is, and I've said the same thing with everybody. This is just raw. I'm not like I'm not the social media guru, even though my 75-year-old founder thinks I'm a whiz at it. But notice he's 75. That's why he thinks I'm good at it. But really, I've got a lot of learning to do. But again, the reason for our conversation today, the reason for Breakthrough 2020 is that really at a time of disruption, God put it on my heart that I have got access to some of the most amazing people on the planet. And so as I see a lot of disruption, noise, confusion, things going on, people are going to look for places where they can find resources and help. And so what I wanted to do is pull together some industry professionals, potentially some just straight up entrepreneurs, perpetual entrepreneurs, people that might either inspire, encourage, lift you up, or give you a resource or some answers to things that you might not be considering and why you should or should not do some of the things that you might have going on in your mind. And so I know what I see already taking place daily is there's this desire for those that are in sales or marketing to flood social media because we can't go and run appointments, or the phones might not be as active. And what happens is it creates a lot of noise, and when there's noise, it makes making a decision difficult. So my idea, my hope, my dream is to create a place and a platform over the next 30 to 60 days to really just be a resource and be somebody who could help and leverage my network to help. And so part of that is inviting my friend Ross Flurry from Network Financial. He's a mortgage broker to come up and join me today for a conversation about refinancing your house. And over the next few weeks, I'm actually going to bring on several great mortgage broker friends of mine, several great realtors, entrepreneurs. And we're all going to cover different topics. Some of them might overlap, but it's for you to get a taste or a non-biased approach, not just one person's opinion, but multiple opinions to really about the industry and the things that are taking place in it. And so right now, a big hot topic, because I've even helped clients, I've helped service people, is refinancing, right? Refinancing your house. Money is cheap, but there's some complexities about money that people might not understand, the underlying or the underbelly of things that are taking place. And so we're going to talk about some of that today. And then Ross, being the king of networking, is just really writes the book for it up there on the north side of Houston for us, is going to tell us a little bit about what he's built up there in his network and how he's leveraged it and some of the success stories that he has. And this is the time that you'll realize that relationships matter. So if you haven't figured that out now, this is a great time to figure it out. Ross is a great example. I'm thankful to have you join me today, Ross.
Jason, it's a complete honor, man. When you presented the idea, I was floored. I think this is exactly what you need to be doing. We've talked for the past year about the value of connecting and the giving back and serving others first mentality. And during the crisis like this, when everybody's stuck at home and in this, particular predicament, you're making the most of it. And we talked about making the most out of opportunity on our first phone call. And I think this is the perfect platform for you to do that right now. So appreciate it. It's an honor to be here.
Appreciate it, brother. So let's dive in, man. We're going to keep these episodes or these conversations short and sweet and kind of to the topic. So let's dive into the idea of the refinance. So let me tell you what I hear, the noise of the things that are going on. So we do understand that mortgage rates are low. We also know that they're very fluctuant. I've watched them just week over week, I think, and so the one thing we do know is 0% does not mean 0% mortgage. And so people, when they heard that the Fed was going to zero, they thought, I'm sure your phone blew up, right? Can I get a zero?
Oh yeah.
But there's some nuances to that. And so I want to talk about, so first of all, give me the backdrop. Tell me what's really happening in the mortgage space. You've been getting phone calls and your phone's been, see, this is the beauty of raw. My motion sensor went out. Okay.
I see that. You good?
Talking in the darker light, it's all good. But so the beauty of what's been taking place in the mortgage realm is, and I know you said your phones were lighting up, and a lot of my friends have been, but tell me what's really happening. So give me a quick overview of what you're seeing in the mortgage space right now, and then we'll get into the details.
All right. Well, in a nutshell, and I want to present kind of a layman's term, view of this. First off, I want to put it out there. I can't talk about too many details, I guess, just for licensing purposes. But in a nutshell, I want to give a brief overview of what everybody's seeing. Obviously, we see banks tightening up. That's been the theme that everybody's discussing right now. Credit scores, minimum credit scores are rising. That goes for FHA, conventional, all across the board. In a nutshell, There's a lot of risk out there. There's a ton of unemployment, as we know. The numbers are increasing, so everybody has to protect themselves. When it comes to rates in particularly, a lot of volatility. Refis in general, we're telling everybody, hey, from day to day, it's different. Markets are different from each lender, and some lenders will only put out a rate sheet until they have a certain amount of submissions, and then they cut it off. And they say the rate sheet's expired for that day. So there's so many things that are affecting the volatility. But refis in general, I think it's a day-to-day thing to keep checking the rates. If you're looking into refinancing, get with your mortgage broker, your trusted source, and let them know your scenario. What I've been doing lately is not running credit and just saying, hey, it's good to connect, first of all. Speaking to everybody, I feel like everybody has that same hot topic question of what can a refi do for me? If I'm looking to purchase, is this the time to buy? Or the next couple of months perfect for me? Look at my scenario. Here's my credit. What can I get done? So those are the scenarios that we're being presented on a daily. I look at it as a great opportunity to connect to people, but also educate and let them know where the guidelines are. If you have any particular questions regarding guidelines, credit scores, and stuff like that, we can get into it. And I think that would be helpful just for the people at home to think, okay, this is where I'm at right now. Here's my current scenario. I have this much equity. What could I do?
And so let's start there. Uh, what's a good place, I guess, if you were to take a home and say, call it a couple $100,000, right? So at what point in time does it make sense before I've gone down the path of like when should I really consider a refinance? What's a good scenario for that?
Well, there's so many different scenarios out there. Obviously, we get that same question, and it's a phone call. I have to call and say, hey,
Okay.
tell me these details. Where are you? When did you buy? What's your current balance? What's your current rate? What type of loan is it? What is your PMI at? Do you have PMI? And then what are the goals of the refinance, right? There's so many questions that run through my head as a mortgage guy when someone says, hey, is it time for me to refinance? And we can't just answer it right there, right? But for the most part, we look at minimum scores rising to the 620 range for government loans, FHA loans, VA loans, USDA, maybe even higher in some cases, 640. But you'll see kind of the minimum people doing is around 620, maybe some people doing 600 still. But man, it's tight. Conventional, some of the big banks are going up to 700 plus is what they need to do a conventional loan right now. So a lot of tightening up. Debt ratios, we used to be able to go up to 50 and 55, and all the lenders are getting a little bit nervous. They're tightening, which was to be expected.
Let's stop there for a second. So as people start to think about urgency, right? Because sometimes people might be clouded or not really sure. You said, so I hear that the mortgage rates are super low. I hear that the Fed's trying to give away money, but then now I hear that lenders are tightening up. So I don't understand what that means. Why, if I'm a consumer, why is it that even though rates might get better or be better, why is it that it might be more complicated or more difficult for me to get into a loan over the next few months? What's causing that pressure?
The pressure is from the unemployment, honestly.
Okay.
The unemployment, the rates being so low when you're investing in these, mortgage-backed securities, there's only so much profit to be made, right? So you look at, we were talking earlier on the call, and not to get into too much detail that's over everybody's heads, but it's all about profit and what they can make, and they're only willing to take risks on certain loans right now.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So it's really protecting themselves and ensuring that they're because I know we're entering a place where money is going out, right? And so I'm going to push money out, but now all of a sudden there's people who are potentially getting the opportunity not to bring the money in through pushing their mortgage back, et cetera. And so they're basically, if I understand it, is I'm going to lend out more money, put more money in the universe. But now it seems that there might be some skepticism on the money that I was already intending to collect, and that could be a potential time bomb or an obstacle. Now,
Of
let me ask
course.
you this: talk to me about the truth of or the obstacles with, if I'm, let's say I'm trying to manage my expenses and I am furloughed, but meaning I've been told I'm going to go back to work, right? Meaning I've had a job and they said, hey, we're going to, once we open and we get running, you're not completely unemployed. Maybe your income's been cut 30%, but you've shown that you've been gaining that income. is that something that is taken into consideration for somebody that's trying to redo their budget? Or are they going to look at their current scenario? Are they going to look at their track record? What would that situation look like? Or have you been faced with anything like that? What would that look like from a financial institution?
Definitely, it's major, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's a negative thing right now. The major things that we're seeing and the big hurdles that we're seeing in all refinances, all purchases, mainly are verification of employments. They want to see that, one, not only do you still have a job, do you still have security down the road, but they want to know that you haven't been impacted by this.
Gotcha.
There have been lenders that are stopping fundings at the closing table because they can't re-verify and prove that they're going to be for sure employed, or the employer is not willing to say that on paper right now because it's very unstable.
Got it. So that is a real obstacle that people are faced with.
I would love to share a little bit more. There's tons of these examples, but one for the self-employed buyer, borrower, depending on how long you've been self-employed, things are changing rapidly. The level of risk that lenders are putting into loans, you see the qualifiable income being cut down 25% just so they know that, hey, if this person's income is affected this year, we only qualified them on 75% of what we really calculated. They're asking for P&Ls. They're asking to prove that the business is still in place after this coronavirus and all of the scares. So unfortunately, we've had to kind of limit the approvals and applications that are self-employed because we just can't calculate the income like we used to. And we don't know if we're going to submit a loan to a lender that right when we submit it, they say, hey, I know it was calculated at this, but they no longer qualify, right? So
Gotcha.
I think things will get back to normal soon. Hopefully, I'm being optimistic, but they are tightening up. And I did want to mention the self-employed hurdles that we're seeing.
Well, I think that's important for people to know, because the idea here is not to dispel hope, but it's to give people clarity, right?
Right.
So, and there's nothing more discouraging than thinking something like logging on and going through the process and getting to the table and being told the ball's been moved on you. So what I hear you saying is that if you're going to go get a loan, you just have to kind of make sure your ducks are in a row, right? And so,
yes, for sure. And my advice and what I'd like to do is I hear every scenario out before we pull credit. I'll maybe, if we get to that point, we'll maybe pull one score just so I can see the liabilities. I don't know that it's worth going through the trouble for everybody. If you go to a normal bank, they're just going to take your application, run your credit, and say yes or no. If they do say yes, you could go down the road of spending money on an appraisal and getting down 2 weeks into the process. Then you find out, man, they're really backed up. I thought it was going to take 30 days. It's going to be 60, 75 days. And then you get that far along, and then they may deny you or they may pull the program. It's very, very wise, in my opinion, to speak to someone, one, that's been in the business and specialized in the business for a very long time, two, that has options. I feel like, most of my career, I did work at a place where I only had one option. And if they pulled that program, I was done. So, we have that whole saying, brokers are better. That's, kind of our catchphrase in the independent mortgage broker world. But I truly do feel like it's so beneficial during this time to work with someone that has multiple lenders, multiple options, because look, if they pull something and you're on the edge, or they say, hey, we no longer do 50% DTI, it's now 40 or 45, and then your deal goes flat, you don't qualify anymore, it's best to have another option, especially with the person that, already knows the scenarios, already working, already has all the documents, we package it up, find the lender that's still doing this program, go there, get it done, right?
well, I'll tell you what, Ross, I think, the big things that I wanted to talk about, which was really is what's really happened in the mortgage world. I think we were able to tackle a lot of that stuff today. The key things that I heard, which is, and let me try to reinstate what I heard on a few things, is it's a moving target right now. So people need to be, understanding. Try to go, if you're going to get into the marketplace. Well, let me back up. I've got one more question. What about running my credit? Like, right? Is it like, I know there's a myth or a thing that's like, oh my God, I would call them, and then if it can't do it, they run my credit, I'm deemed or whatever. Like, how much is that of significance in today's environment? Like,
that is actually a great question. A lot of people don't ask that, because what I've seen in 14 years of doing this, it affects people with higher credit scores much, much less. There's not a real number that anyone can really put on it, I don't think. But if you've had it ding numerous times, if you have some collections, if your scores, a little bit lower, it's going to impact it a good bit more, in my opinion, and what I've seen, in my experience.
Gotcha. Okay. And then back to the connection component. The purpose of this, is the human component, right? So I know a lot of people today. You can go online, you can click on a button, and all of a sudden you're online. And I was helping a guy the other day, and I asked him who he was working with, and he's like, "Oh, I'm just working with the guys at whatever Rocket Mortgage or something."
Quicken, yeah.
And I said, "Man," I said, how far in the process? He's like, "Well, I've just completed this." And I said, "Well, and he was actually referral to me to talk about if it made sense to refinance." So I went over some financials with them, and I offered a suggestion. And my suggestion was real simple. I said, "Look, I've got 5 or 6 great mortgage guys, wonderful human beings. I can give you 2 of them. You can call them, interview them with them, make sure it's right." But my recommendation, man, is because this thing's pivoting so fast, is get you a human, right? Get you a human, and not that the Quicken Loans isn't a human, but that guy
Of
won't.
course.
But get you a guy that knows 5 or 6 people, or at least 1 or 2 or 3 of the people that whose name is riding on trying to their reputation, because the guy at Quicken doesn't know yet.
That's right.
If he calls you back and says, "Hey, ball switched," and he's got 5 other things in the funnel of people who filled out applications, he's not married to you. And so, yeah, I'm a big fan of that person that, maybe virtually we can't shake hands right now, but maybe you slide up and eventually that person's, or they're sending you a basket because you closed, and eventually, you're referring somebody to them. The world of, just because we've lost human touch with these computer screenies and all that stuff, which drives me crazy because I just want to hug my boy Ross, but is the reality is in the midst of all that, as being human still matters, right? So
That's right.
I heard that. So getting connected to somebody. So with that, that's a great transition to what you've done. Is you started a kind of a connection network up there in the Woodlands. So tell us about that. Tell us the importance of relationships in your mind, because right now I believe too, someone who might be watching this is potentially trying to determine if they're going to step out of their comfort zone.
Of course.
Right? Are they going to do something different? How does that work? And where can I get connected? How can I start to push forward and maybe stretch myself? And so I'm inviting people to understand what that was like. I think what's unique about your story is you came to the Woodlands with nothing. Like you were just from Louisiana or Florida. Florida is like where you're from, Louisiana, but came from Florida. And so you landed in the Woodlands, and then all of a sudden, a few years later, you've got your own networking group, your own business, all this stuff. What does it take for a person who's potentially looking to break through, to get into the right networks and to start behaving that way? Just give us one little bit of nugget to your success. And again, if you're watching this and you haven't connected with Ross, I would encourage doing it, because the guy's a master networker. Tell us a little bit about what you built out there and how it worked for you.
I appreciate it. One little bit. I'm from Louisiana, but went through the mortgage crash in Florida. Brought me back to Louisiana, and man, I did a mortgage for a good friend of mine that got transferred out to the Woodlands, and they bought a house, and that's how I moved out here. Had a weekend where he said, "Man, come check out the house," and we got here, and we're down at Market Street. It's a Friday night, beautiful weather. I'm on the patio, and I'm sitting next to the valet, and I keep seeing Lamborghini, Ferrari, Bentley. I looked at Donnie. I said, "Man, Donnie, where are we?" He said, "The Woodlands, man." I said, "What is this place?" So I'm not kidding you. By Sunday of that weekend, driving back to Louisiana, Shreveport, I said, "Man, I think I'm moving there." And I talked to my girlfriend at the time. We've been dating for a while. And I said, "Hey, is it cool if we go back?" And we've been talking about moving for a while. So that's how I got here. What I saw here was, man, it's how you going to penetrate a market right here. I don't know anybody. I know one person, but I fell in love with the opportunity. My ambition was back when I moved here. Shreveport was home. So I felt like being back there, I could make a great living. I could be a millionaire right now if I would have just done that home base and built that hometown crowd. But that's not exactly what I wanted. I was super ambitious, and I saw a crazy opportunity in Houston and the Woodlands. So moving out here, man, to speak to your question, I'm a person of connection. I love connecting with people just like you. And I had to find what gave my pizzazz, what gave me the zest for life again in the mortgage business. because it became transactional. And I was so focused on building this for my money and for my own security and to make it in this new town. This new town is all about kind of keeping up with the Joneses. That was a lot of pressure as well. We were used to making decent money in the mortgage business, but when you go to a town where you don't know anybody, those referrals aren't coming. You got to build it.
Yeah.
So what I saw was missing was a group of professionals that was within my age, 25 to 45, that wanted to connect, wanted to come together, were entrepreneurs, had these ideas that were all about good vibes, connections, and helping our fellow man. And we didn't have an entrepreneurs network back then. So in 2015, me and a friend, we just said, let's start this Facebook group, the Woodlands Young Entrepreneurs Network. We started this. Everybody started connecting. We wanted to create a culture of sharing your business, sharing the value of community, and supporting your nonprofits, getting the attention of the leaders in this town. That was something I felt that, you know, our demographic didn't understand, that we weren't really earning the trust of these guys. We were kind of looked at as these entitled millennials, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that, and I kind of felt like my purpose here is this group started growing, and we had leaders like Missy Herndon, Bob Milner, and Gil Staley, Representative Congressman Brady, like crazy, reaching out to say, hey, we want to come talk to your young entrepreneurs. I said, man, this is what it's all about. And it wasn't about us. It wasn't about handing out a business card all the time. It was about helping out your fellow man or woman and really seeing what they need to advance and what you can provide resource-wise, right?
Absolutely, man. And I love that. And I love that about you. It's why I was drawing you from day one. You know, I want to congratulate you on your continued work. I would also encourage anybody to reach out to Ross if you're stuck and trying to break through and trying to figure things out. He's open to conversation. He always has been. I think I hit you up through Facebook. So,
Yep.
you know, but I think ultimately, again, if you're introverted, we live in a world today where you don't have to go network in a big room. Now, I was just talking about that today. My wife has done exceptionally well in this environment because she does good not being personally connected. Me, I'm sucked. I'm already freaked out. I want to be in a room full of 100 people and making 100 friends. And so it's learning how to adapt and do those kind of things. But again, the key, and thank you again, Ross, for your education today and for sharing. But I want to leave everybody with this thought: as you go out and you're looking to figure it out, whether it be spiritually, financially, mentally, physically, over the next few weeks, don't be afraid to ask. One of the beautiful things that God has equipped us with, and from every being that he put on this earth, is the ability to cry for help. Augmendino talks about that. And we use the term help as if it's saying it's a sign of weakness, but it's really a sign of instinct. And instinctively, if you're trying to go to the next level, you can instinctively ask for help. And what you'll find is people love to share it. They love to support you. They love to be there for you. And they love to take what they feel is their gift and pass it on. And that's really what this is about. And so, again, reach out to us. Again, there's no sales pressure. There's nothing in this environment designed for that reason. We're solely here to really create a platform and an atmosphere for you to go in and push and break through this year.
Hey, don't cut it out yet. I got more to say real quick. I got to say, look, it's all about who you surround yourself with. There are more than willing. I would say I always spoke to the young entrepreneurs about go and reach out to these professionals that you look up to. It's exactly what you said. They long for the opportunity to teach, educate, motivate, mentor, and they're more than willing to give that advice.
I love it, man.
So thank you for the opportunity, Jason. If I could say anything, surround yourself with the right people. You are the right people. Keep doing what you do. And thank you for the opportunity. Look forward to more of your content.
Awesome, man. We'll see you around. Thanks,
buddy. See you later.